But the general impression has been that, as some of these countries, and especially economically weak countries, have had to adjust, to adapt and adopt the structure adjustment programs recommended by the IMF, World Bank, institutions, as well as having to service the loans that they had. The reality is they haven't had resources, for dealing with the local infrastructure. So whilst of course you don't want to say all the the blame goes to that, certainly it's not irrelevant to the fact that they don't have the economic, or at least their economic power has been somewhat more limited because of having to respond to the requirements that were imposed on them. And of course internally the government, the governments of the day, whether because their priorities have been in other directions or whatever, other things may have been going on, they have not necessarily, come across as, promoting some of the kind of activities that some of us are interested in. Now, that's not to say that, that they have no interest. It could very easily be, and I would like to be able to give the benefit of the doubt that that the kinds of pressures they've had to operate under, and the kinds of demands made on the resources have probably been far more overwhelming, and responses to that have meant that certain things which are not of immediate immediate significance have had to be put on the back. But the logic basically that, look, you understand what your own local community needs. Those areas where the community is in need and where what is required is your energy, your resourcefulness. What is there to stop you from donating that at the minimum? And that's basically the logic. I mean, when I visited, when I first noticed that the kids were having classes in the open, the reason I noticed that was because I was going to see my sister's graves, the local cemetery. The church was nearby and the school is run by the Anglican diocese, and it was near the church and the cemetery was just right, just past the school. All right. And I went, to visit, to see my sister's graves, my grandparents, grandmothers, grandfathers' graves, etc. All right. But the thing is that the cemetery was overgrown. It was, there was a lot of grass. And my uncle had to sort of wade me through, all that grass to, check on this grave and that grave. And the idea struck me to say, here are youths who pray at this church, who have their family members and friends resting in this cemetery, want someone to give them soccer balls and soccer jerseys, and can't even contribute to a very simple thing like maintaining that. And then it was simple, it was that kind of thing. I said, why should I care? All right, when you can, when you don't want to show the concern for your own community, why should your own church, be covered in grass? So the idea was that, look, in areas where what is required is, are things that you can provide, your energy and the simple tools that, you have around, hose and slashers, etc. All right, go cut the grass, go mop the church. All right, it's your own. Things of that kind. That I said, you have no excuse to expect that, someone else should come along and urge you to do that. All right. But, amidst everything else, there were certain things Kamuzubanda really nailed down. All right. So, for instance, he said that amongst his basic concerns were that, the people of Malawi should have food, should have clothes, and should have, shelter, places to stay. Those are sort of, and when you think about it, actually a fair amount of economic activity revolved around ensuring that, those basic facility amenities are available. But also, amongst the slogans that he used to have, was, was to say, it was in Chichewa. Let me just use that. And perhaps he didn't actually use it himself. It was others who were using it. They would say kwacha, all right, and the people responded kwacha, kamuzu, and the people responded Mtsogoleli wa Muyaya Malawi, which means life president in Malawi. And then they would say Ifetonse, all of us, and the people responded Boma, which means the government. All right. Now, the thing is this, that when you take those slogans, all right, kwacha, kamuzu, mtsogoleli wa Muyaya Malawi, Ifetonse, Boma. The point is this, that the people are in effect saying, we are the government. So there's something, like I say, a little odd when you say, well, we shouldn't be doing that. It's the government's job. Right. Well, who is the government? You are the ones who've been saying all these years, we are the government, all right? And so in a sense, it's, this whole program, part of it is a way of trying to empower the youth to feel that they are indeed part of the government. This is theirs. It's that the government is not some remote thing you identify with the current president of the president of the day and the cabinet that's out there. All right? I mean, those guys in parliament, yes, they'll be doing this and the other, but certain other things in your local area, you own those things. Or you should have you should feel empowered, to, take action over things that belong to your community. And that's how you're going to contribute towards national development. If you think that, it's the job of the government, and the government is this sort of nebulous, thing out there, well, nothing's going to happen. You need to remember that, when you were chanting that thing, if it all say Boma, if it all say Boma, you were saying you are the government. This is your responsibility. It's yours. And so in a sense, the message is that of trying to empower them, to really take on, the needs of their country, the needs of their, nation, through, these simple things of, just simply paying attention to